The New York judge in Donald Trump's upcoming hush money trial has made it crystal clear this week that he is not in the mood for any games from the former president or his legal team, banning Trump from attacking prosecutors, witnesses, and jurors. So Trump has found someone new to attack, Judge Juan Merchan's daughter. In a new post tonight, he calls her out by name. Trump goes after her as a, quote, rabid Trump hater because she's done work for Democratic campaigns in the past. He didn't stop there. He also accused her of posting a picture of him behind bars, which Trump says, quote, makes it completely impossible for me to get a fair trial. I should note, however, that is apparently not true. And the New York State court system says that long ago, Judge Merchan's daughter abandoned that Twitter account and that it's also not linked to her email. Even so, she's a private citizen. She's not party to this case. I should note that the gag order that the judge did put in place earlier this week doesn't apply to himself nor to his family. Tonight, I want to bring in senior U.S. District Judge Reggie Walton, who was nominated for judgeships by both Presidents Bush 41 and 43. And it's great to have you here, Judge, tonight. And I just want to say thank you for joining us. And I think to a lot of people, the dangers of attacking a judge and his family and their family is clear. I wonder how you would respond to something like this.
Well, it's very disconcerting to have someone making comments about a judge, and it's particularly problematic when those comments are in the form of a threat, especially if they're directed at one's family. I mean, we do these jobs because we're committed to the rule of law and we believe in the rule of law, and the rule of law can only function effectively when we have judges who are prepared to carry out their duties without the threat of potential physical harm.
And you know personally, I mean, what this is like. Someone threatened your daughter once as well.
Yes, threatened me one day, and then the next day called and made a threat against my daughter, and also had indicated my address. So they obviously had done some research to find out that I had a daughter and what her name was, and also where I live.
I mean, what's that even? That must be terrifying.
Well, it is, but you kind of have to appreciate that you can't let that impact on how you live your life and how you treat litigants who are before you, because even though threats may be made against you and against your family, you still have an obligation to ensure that everybody who comes into your courtroom is treated fairly, regardless of who they are or what they've done. But nonetheless, it is very troubling because I think it is an attack on the rule of law when judges are threatened, and particularly when their family is threatened. And it's something that's wrong and should not happen.
Given that, I mean, and you said it shouldn't impact your work, but it's got to be something that's always kind of in the back of your mind when you're going to work, when you're leaving, to have those kinds of threats hanging out there.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's a reality that it's not inconceivable that something could happen. We always have to hope that it doesn't occur. But, you know, several years ago, one of my colleagues up in New Jersey, her husband was seriously injured. And sadly, her son was killed. And we had a judge out in Chicago who someone came after her. And fortunately, she was not there, but her family members were. And several of them lost their lives. So it's a reality that we live with, but you try not to let it impact on your day-to-day life.
I don't expect you to get political here, obviously, but do you think that's something that Donald Trump considers when he posts something like this?
I can't get into someone's mind to say whether they appreciate the impact that they're doing, but I would think that any reasonable thinking person would appreciate that when they say things, it can sometimes resonate with others. And I think that's particularly true when you have somebody who has status in our society and they make certain statements. It can cause people to act on those statements, even if they don't necessarily intend for someone to do so. So I think it's very important that people in positions of authority be very circumspect in reference to the things that they say, so that they're not causing others to act on what they say and maybe cause injury or death to someone as a result of that.
What do you make of how the judge here, Judge Juan Merchan, didn't include himself or his family in the gag order?
Yeah, I understand why he wouldn't do that. I mean, again, I think we cannot make ourselves a part of the case. I mean, obviously, we are a part of the case because we're presiding over the proceeding, but we can't make the case in the issue about us. And that can be very difficult, but it comes with the territory. I mean, first and foremost, when we take the oath of office, we have an obligation to make sure that all parties who enter our courtroom receive a fair adjudication, regardless of who they are, what their politics are, or what they've alleged to have done. And therefore, I think it's crucial that judges not make themselves a part of the issue. So I think the judge did the right thing by not including himself in the gag order.
You're someone who has always been really straightforward in your assessment of the former president. You know, if you read your comments when you're sentencing people, when you're in these cases, you once referred to him as a charlatan at the sentencing of a January 6th defendant. I know you've gotten a lot of those cases before you. You've said that you don't think he cares about democracy, only power. That you once seemed to suggest you weren't sure he'd accept defeat if he lost in this election. Do you still feel that way tonight?
I'd rather not comment on that. I mean, I've made those, the comments I've made in the context of the sentencings I impose because I'm hoping that what I say to the individuals who I'm sentencing will resonate with them and cause them to rethink the activity that they engaged in that brought them before the court and hopefully deter them from engaging in further conduct of that nature in the future.
Have you been on the receiving end of more threats since you've had the January 6th defendants in your court?
Yes, I've had more threats than what used to be the case. Yes, I have received a greater number of threats as a result of that incident and the fact that cases arising out of that incident have appeared before me. I mean, it was rare. I've been a judge for over 40 years. And this is a new phenomenon. I'm not saying that it didn't happen before, but it was very rare that I would ever receive any type of a threat, regardless of what type of cases I was handling. And unfortunately, that is no longer the case. I know the Marshal Service has seen a significant increase in the number of threats against judges. And I think obviously that's very, very, very concerning.
You know, it's rare that we get to hear from a sitting federal judge, but obviously this is a gravely important issue. I wonder what made you speak out tonight and speak publicly.
Well, I am concerned because, like I say, we have had judges who've lost their lives or family members have lost their lives as a result of individuals who have been litigants in their courtroom. And I think it's important in order to preserve our democracy that we maintain the rule of law. And the rule of law can only be maintained if we have independent judicial officers who are able to do their job and ensure that the laws are in fact enforced and that the laws are applied equally to everybody who appears in our courthouse. And I think it's important that as judges, we speak out and say things in reference to things that conceivably are going to impact on the process. Because if we don't have a viable court system that's able to function efficiently, then we have tyranny. And I don't think that would be good for the future of our country and the future of democracy in our country.
Senior Judge Reggie Walton, it's great to talk to you. Thank you for joining us here on The Source tonight.